Hey guys! Oh my goodness, this live, I have been on pins and needles all day long about this live. So, if you haven't seen the past month, we have had a live every Wednesday for the past 5 weeks. This is the fifth one and final one for this special edition with best-selling authors on each live. We've had 3 best-selling authors every week, and it has just been so exciting to talk to these amazing writers. And it's all been in celebration of the fact that FanGrrrl Romance Recs has gone live with the website, which is it's just been amazing. And that we're starting to host our own book signing events. I'm right in the middle of planning one for Orlando in 2026. So to celebrate all of this, I reached out to, like I said, three authors for each week, 5 weeks, 15 authors, and this is the last panel. And I reached out to you guys, C.N. Crawford, Stephanie Hudson, and Stacey Marie Brown. Like, actually, to be honest with you, I'm so excited and like a wee bit nervous that I got a mimosa. I got a mimosa. I'm ready to go, man. Because these ladies are just like, they're like legends in what they write, and I have been a huge fan of them for years. So instead of me just going on and on, let me bring them on here. I'm just so excited, you guys. So here we go. All right, here we go. Here's C. Crawford.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, here's Stephanie Hudson. Oh, I'm trying to Hi. And then let's get Stacey.
Hey. I feel like we're on the dating show. I'm like, hi.
Hi. Okay, so I'm going to move this around a little bit just because I think, Stephanie, you said you had an issue seeing yourself earlier. I don't know if you can still. Oh, yeah. All right, can everybody see themselves on the live just so that you can see it? Okay, all right. We had it was a bit fast getting to this live today.
That was my
everyone's
fault.
busy.
I do apologize. I'm usually the one that's late to every party, so my bad.
That's okay. You're here, and that's all that matters. So, okay, all right. So, as I said, we've been doing this, I've been doing this every Wednesday, and it's been so much fun. But I have been so excited about today. I cannot even tell you. And I'm just so honored that the 3 of you said yes and just made time. So, thank you to each of you. Seriously, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I know everyone else appreciates it too.
No, thank you very much for having us on. I mean,
I know.
great.
Like, honored you asked us.
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Okay, so for everyone watching, real quick before we start diving in, so we're broadcasting all over the place. We're broadcasting in these 3 ladies' amazing groups. We're broadcasting in the big group, FanGrrrl Romance Recs, Urban Fantasy, Romantasy, Paranormal Romance, the page, the book signing event group, which is the brand new group, authors group, and Instagram, if it's working right. I was having problems right before it started, so it might not be going on Instagram right now. But the point is, I can't see the comments in all the different places. So we are monitoring comments in the main group, the big group. So if you want to drop a comment where I can see to relate to these ladies, make sure you're doing it in the main group. Okay. All right. So that being said, while I'm doing that, I'm going to pull up the comments. Let's get moving here. Let's get started. So can we talk about what each of you writes and what series you're most known for? And whoever wants to kick off, just run with it here. I'm pulling up the comments right now, so forgive me.
I think we're all going to be really polite and let everybody else go first.
Oh, no, I'm going to throw you under the bus, Stephanie. You were late. It's your...
We nominate Stephanie.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. Let's just do you guys know each other? I don't even know if you know each other. Like, have you met before?
I know each other. I don't think I've actually met Stephanie.
Yeah,
no.
Oh.
Yeah.
No,
I know of Stephanie,
met.
but we haven't met in person.
Yes, but yeah. No.
Okay.
I know of, yeah. Like, I know of.
Yeah. I know of you guys. It's like
I know of.
Stacey, I'm realizing that you typed your name wrong, which I think is quite funny, but I shouldn't have pointed that out. But
did I? Oh my God, I did. I was just hurrying to get on.
That's usually me. I usually type my name wrong.
Brown. It's Braun.
It's Welsh now.
It's Welsh.
Like, it actually fits perfectly with how I spell. So like people are like, "Oh, you're an author. You probably have great grammar." I'm like, "That's what I have."
Oh my! I get that all the time, and then I have that like moment where I go, well, no, actually, I'm dyslexic, and they kind of like look at me and go, oh, really? Like, you know, dyslexic author, that's a thing, and I'm like, it's a thing. Spell check is my friend.
Right.
So yeah.
That always blows my mind that you have been able to write as many books as you have and been as successful as you have with dyslexia. That's amazing to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite an accomplishment.
It's
Yeah.
amazing to me too.
Okay, I can see the comments. Yay, guys, I can see the comments in the big group. We're good to go. Okay, that was a little bit crazy there for a second. Okay, all right. So
me, right?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. So I write the kind of I always say I write the afterlife saga, but it's kind of turned into the afterlife world. I write paranormal romance, and it's a very, very never-ending series of lots of books. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really.
So you're known for Afterlife was. I'm gonna help you out here, girl. Afterlife was your first book.
My first book was Afterlife.
Yes.
Yes. My first book was Afterlife, and my 52nd book was Hellbeast book 9. So yeah. So.
And it's a ginormous world. And your first book, you were a waitress at the time, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you had this idea.
It's just
it's
such a cliche story. It's like I was a struggling waitress at a cocktail bar. I was pregnant.
You too, Stacey?
I couldn't afford.
I was minus the pregnant.
You know, it's like a movie. I know. Yeah. And anyway, I tried to get it traditionally published, and nobody kind of wanted to know. So I heard about self-publishing and never looked back. Yeah, and it's been a whirlwind, and that was coming up for 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And then because that's when 2013 is when my first book came out. What was yours?
2012. Yeah.
Okay. So
we
each other.
Yeah.
And you were a waitress too, Stacey?
I at the time, yes. I mean, I did serving tables and bartending for like 12 years. Like I did it all over the world. But at that time, I was back to school with interior design, and I think I was halfway to. No, I just got fired from waiting tables because I started getting a little like grumpy, and I couldn't hide.
It's like,
I just couldn't. I obviously hit my limit on it, and I just couldn't. And they're like, "We're gonna let you go." So I was actually doing retail at the time, which was even worse for me because I'm not the kind like they wanted somebody that was like right on them, going like, "Oh, it was for a design." Store, but they wanted people to like push sales, and I'm just like, hey, if you need me, I'm here. If not, fuck off. So I basically was let go on both jobs, and I was just like, all right, well, on that time I was at my second book, and I'm like, let's just keep doing this, and so I never looked back either. So yeah, but
now we know why you have such amazing wallpaper, because you have like an actual degree in it or experience.
Yeah. No, I actually went back to school for it. Little did it help me because I, right when I got my diploma and I was doing home staging, I went right into writing books. So as usual, my education went, didn't go anywhere.
But can I just ask, because I'm really curious now, like, do you go really into detail when you like do like the rooms and stuff? Like, are you in your element?
Yeah, but actually that goes back to my acting directing background. I did a lot of I was even more cliche than you. I was the waitress in Hollywood. Okay. Like I was acting, but I was really a server, but I did all that extra work. I was on Buffy, I was on Angel, I was in Scream. I was doing all that kind of stuff.
Wait,
yes,
we
I'm
need to see
my
the clips of
right
you
now
Buffy
too.
I like the way she just drops that in there like it's nothing,
About me by now. I did all I've had many lives. Let's just say I'm a freaking cat.
Amazing.
But I was the cliche of all cliches. I was waiting tables. So
love it.
And
I'm pretty sure I've seen a picture of you with Jason Momoa, right?
Oh, Jason, yeah, I met him twice. And I just met Charlie Hunnam too. That was an extra little
my gosh.
Yeah, he was my inspiration for Darkness series. I was watching Sons of Anarchy at the time, my first book. I was writing my first book, and I like, not maybe even necessarily physically, but that essence of Jax. I was like, yes, that's what I want in Darkness. And so I put him in a fantasy the gang, the biker gang, and stuff like that. So when I met him, I was like I was just, yeah, I tried to be like, I'm smooth. I'm such a, I was like, do I know the English language right now? I'm not sure. So anyways.
And I can't, I think we all think of Warwick as Jason Momoa from Savage Lands. Yeah,
my
you like that when he was.
Time I've ever had an actor in my head. Most of the time, I want to see I don't want to see an actor because I want to see my character. He was the only time I actually wrote to physical, everything. I was like, yep, Warwick's Jason.
And for you, Steph, I think it's the Hellbeast King, right? Don't most people think of the Hellbeast King as being Jason Momoa?
Yeah.
Don't they? Usually, that's you get a lot in your group. So the two of you, that's awesome, man.
We must both have a thing.
Christine, tell us a little bit about you and what you write. We all know who you are, but just go, girl. We want to hear more.
So I guess I started a little bit later than you both, but not that much. And my first books were published in the very end of 2014. Those were middle grade books that no one's heard of. And before that, I was a psychologist. And then before that,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
And then before that, I worked in the UK in the film industry, but just I was a graphic designer kind of, but a really bad graphic designer. And I worked for this DVD company, and there would be the sophisticated graphic designers who would get the proper jobs, and they'd be moving menus, and they'd do all this cool stuff in After Effects, and then they'd give me just these old Whoopi Goldberg movies, or Ishtar, which is considered the worst movie ever made. I made that DVD menu. But yeah, so now I write portal. I would call it portal fantasy. A lot of our books start in the regular world, and then somebody is invited into the magical world, and there's a little back and forth between both. We have one or two epic fantasy books and some post-apocalyptic, but mostly they're just start in an urban fantasy setting and then go into a magic world.
Yeah. So you do more, I think, more along the lines of Romantasy, really. I mean, you got the UF in it too, but it has that feel to it.
Yeah, I think and it's kind of funny because Romantasy is so broad, and I think it's branding more than it is the content of the books. I feel like people think of Frost. I feel like people think of it as Romantasy because the cover looks like that, but it's if it had a different cover, it could be probably called urban fantasy. I don't know, but they do go into the fairy world and spend most of the book in there, so that might be it too.
Right.
It's
and
funny.
Stacey, you did the same thing. I was gonna,
Well, what we call books now, it's changed, especially since started 2013. Every time, I'm like, is it urban fantasy? Is it this? Is that? I'm like, I don't know. It is what I don't have labels, but my cover does the same. Where I necessarily wouldn't read dystopian at all. That is not my genre. And people see my covers and immediately go, "Oh, that's dystopian fantasy," and I'm like, actually, that's not at all what it was supposed to be. Yeah. But it's just funny how you change the covers and it'll change people's idea and why who wants to try it. But it's just funny how these little labels on it, how they keep changing, and I'm like, I don't even know where mine fit anymore. I think I just write it all.
I think it's tough. Some of the older labels now just seem outdated. I don't think anyone says paranormal romance anymore, even though we're still writing it. But
I feel like if I tell a non-book person I write paranormal romance, they automatically think I write about ghosts.
Ghosts, yeah.
And I don't know why it's called supernatural romance. It just seems like that would be a better fit, considering you're doing more supernatural kind of vampires and everything like that. But I mean, it's really hard I always find it quite difficult as well, because I may have battles in hell and stuff like that, but I also jump into different realms and fey realms, and it's all in the same storyline. So it's well, what do you name it? Do you name it fantasy? Do you name it paranormal romance? Where do you? There's so many crossovers. It just it becomes a little bit difficult, I think.
But I agree, Christine. I don't think paranormal is being used as much anymore. I think that's very much when we first started, that was very much the key word to use. Yeah. And now I don't see that as much. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should start changing you know,
Well,
what I'm advertising it as, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think these youngins are getting what I'm like, okay,
But
oh,
that's
like,
the
I
thing.
don't know.
There's so many subgenres now. What do
There
you
are.
call it when you do cross them over?
Yeah, and we all cross over. We all have everything like
They are
you know.
blended
Yeah.
now. It's hard. It's hard to tell. A lot of times people tell from the cover, you know, so that's a, you know, if it's got the fantasy looking cover, they think, okay, it goes off world, you know. I actually had to define the umbrella for the group to be any book that is supernatural, paranormal, fantasy, one of those like, or an or scenario, supernatural or paranormal or fantasy, and romance. And so then that like makes the whole umbrella where all this stuff can come under it. And that's helped out a lot. But I actually wrote an explanation of genres on the website for paranormal romance, urban fantasy, and romantasy. I did a bunch of research and looked it up just because it's hard for people, even though some of them might be a little bit outdated and there's a lot of blending. You get people who will write a post in the group and they'll be looking for something that's like an ACOTAR, you know, and then like Immortals After Dark might be recommended. And it's like that, those are really different books. Like they have vampire elements in them, right? But like one is like, you know, an off-world fae, it's world building maps. The other one is like, you know, a couple every other book, you know, it's a modern setting, it's really steamy, you know, so it's hard with the genres and stuff, you know, for sure. But
I need to look that
sorry,
up.
my 2 cents.
I need to look
Yeah.
up your research so I know what I'm talking about.
And we still have to go to a bookstore, and it's still under science fiction and fantasy.
Right.
It's
You know,
hard.
Like Dad, talk about old school. I'm like, can we update this? Like, you know, no one finding my book should go into science fiction. You know,
Right.
like it just, I don't
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
why we still have these old labels in the bookstores, though.
Yeah.
We should start a revolution, a book revolution. Clearly.
Well, I will say I did give a disclaimer on the article that I wrote on the website. Like at the top, I say this is for the group. Like I've made sure to make it really clear that it's what Rebecca's researched and how we refer to it in the group, because everyone has an opinion, man. It's so subjective. You go anywhere and someone calls one thing and something else. So it's just, it's good to have an idea. So that way people, like I said, when they do a rec in the group, they don't get something, because the last thing I want is for someone to recommend a book to them and then them go pick it up and then give it a bad review because it's not even in the wheelhouse of what they wanted, you know, which people do, you know, because some people aren't nice when it comes to that, unfortunately.
Keyboard warriors.
Keyword. Speaking of, tell me about your reviews. I'm sure you guys have a juicy story for us about a review. Has there ever been a review that's been shocking or like just surprising or funny or anything you guys got? Because you guys get lots of reviews. There's got to have some story.
We're gonna have to
Anybody?
think hard about this because we're very
No.
trained to not talk about reviews.
Well, we can move on.
It's
You guys
such
can say
a
pass.
taboo thing that authors don't want to talk about.
We're like,
Is it really?
We'll talk about it not publicly. I will say this is not so much a personal take, but I am seeing a lot more discourse online about people talking about tagging authors in reviews, and there's a lot of authors venting about that, but I'm anticipating that becoming like another backlash of like that the authors have been venting about it. I don't know. But I don't look at, I have Goodreads blocked, so I don't look at those. So I don't know what people are saying.
Goodreads can be bad. Well, we can pass. I don't know. This is the first time I've heard that actually from you guys.
What's
I mean,
that?
it's the first time I've heard that from you guys. So we can pass the question if that's taboo. I didn't know it was taboo. I learned something new.
Because we understand reviews are for, you know, the readers. Like once we put
Yeah,
a book out
that's
there,
true.
I understand those reviews. But I think what's becoming the problem is they are taking that and turning. It's almost like they want to punish it a bit. If they didn't like our book, they're like, I'm gonna like. Not only am I going to write a bad review, I'm going to tag you in it so you feel it too, like, you know, so you know you did wrong or something. It's like whapping us on the nose like a bad dog, you know.
They get personal. Like,
yeah, and they get really personal. I think that's where we're like, we're human beings, that this is our blood and our heart.
Yeah.
So you may not like that, and that's fine.
Totally
we're not
cool,
taking that away from you. I think a lot of them jump to conclusions. We're like, no bad reviews. No, that's not it. Just don't like personally attack us. I wouldn't go into your work and be like, you are horrible at this. You're, you know,
I know.
I don't understand it. Like
it.
how people do not have that sensitivity chip of understanding that we're human beings. And not only did like, you may not like it, but that was my heart and soul, you know, like, and, you know, you might compare it to every other author, but that was mine, not theirs, mine the way I interpreted that story. And so so I think that's where we get really like, and we're told from day one, do not respond to reviews, do not respond to reviews. That's for because they get really harsh and so we're like, okay, we just I have to just take it. We just have to.
Don't give any instructions about reviews either. Like it's for arcs, like not like you're not, that's taboo too as well. I know that part. Yeah. So
it's just,
I didn't know I was
like, we're just supposed to shut up and take it, and I understand again, that is their thing, but then don't tag me in it because I am still a human being and that hurts, and that I want my first instinct is want to, go, no, you interpreted that totally wrong. She like, that wasn't at all what I was trying to say, but we just have to be like,
yeah, I think like the worst one that I had was like a personal attack on what my sex life would be.
Oh no.
Or should be. Yeah, like it can get so nasty. And it's like, oh, it's almost like they believe that you are the character.
Yes. Well, that, as I was saying before, I used to be a psychologist, and on City of Thorns, I would get, comments on social media that was like, did you just pick up your first psychology book? And I'm like, no, but the character did. She's an undergrad. Right? Like, we're different. I'm 45. She's 21. But yeah, it is that thing where people kind of think you're the character. But and I think it's kind of two separate things. There's reviews, and people can do whatever they want, and I don't look at them. And then there's like the social media thing, which is probably just, it's not limited to authors. It's just generally people kind of having no filter on social media in many different areas. That's like not just a problem for authors, but probably lots of different realms where it's like, I don't know. Yeah. Where it's like, we've forgotten that you can think something and not type it.
Yeah.
It's when you're not facing the person you're saying these things about, it's almost like, they don't ever, it's easier for them because they don't see the backlash of it. They don't see the result of their words.
Yeah.
So,
they don't see me crumpled in a corner the rest of the day and can't write because now I'm like totally like, oh God, whatever that is, that might have hit on a day that I'm like, there's been reviews that took me out. Like I could not write for like 2 days after that. And we do have a tendency to take I do like negative. Like I have that thing of like, oh, they found me out. They really like found that I'm an awful, author and I can't do this and I shouldn't be in this job. And, and so like, it'll sometimes really fuck with me. And you just have to learn along the way of like, nope. Okay. Big girl pants on. I'm changing it, but I just think in today's social media, a lot of people are doing it for clicks and likes, I'll go on TikTok and they'll go out of their way to be like, let's talk about the books I hated, and I'm like, so not only you might have taken a book that somebody may have loved because you said that you hate it, they're going to now be in their head of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't like this book. Oh, maybe I, oh, you're right about this scene where, before I'm like, there's a lot of times I hate when also people ask like, guys, tell me, like, I haven't read this book. What do you think? I'm like, then you're begging to already get somebody else's opinion.
You're being biased, you're being swayed.
You could have loved it or hated it. It doesn't matter. You already taking somebody else's opinion on, so it's just like these things in social media are just like, they're outright. Sometimes I feel like trying for the clicks and the, like, let's talk about this I hate.
They want the argument. They want the response because of course they have got nothing to lose. So, almost like it's sometimes I feel like they're trying to draw people into a reactive kind of state. And and the thing is what a lot of people I think don't understand is when you are an author, because writing is such a personable thing, you are pouring your heart and soul and everything onto the page. You then become in a very vulnerable position by putting yourself out there with your writing and this, that, and the other. And I think, that's it. I mean, it's the nature of the beast, you can't have it both ways, but still it does become difficult when you are putting yourself out there for the negative reviews and this, that, and the other. And not only that, everybody has a bad day. How do you know that somebody who's just finished that book is in the right state of mind to finish that book, or to be even reading that book? They could be having a really shitty day and then just like,
moody, right?
Mood
readers
rip into this book now because I'm super angry at my life, or it's just it is it is what it is, unfortunately. So it's funny how we said like reviews are taboo, and then we just like gone.
I
on-
But, you know, we're like, okay, well, we have a lot to say on it. We just usually, you know, stay
usually don't,
silent.
right.
So when you let us, we're like, all right, you ready for this?
Yeah, you broke
Yeah.
Pandora's box. That's it.
Okay,
It's
let me,
coming
just
out.
do a quick, let me just do a quick PR cleanup. People can review books however they want. It would be nice if we weren't tagged in the ones where you hated them.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. Wrap it
Yes.
up. Break it up.
Definitely.
Actually, I have a rule in the group about that. There's a rule that talks about tagging authors. We ask people to use their discretion when tagging. So if it's, you know, because it's not just like the negative reviews that authors wouldn't be tagged on, but if it's just random, like, for example, like someone will be talking about some book series, and then someone in the comment will be like, "Oh, you should go read Savage Lands. I love it, Stacey Marie Brown." You know, and it's like, well, that's nice for you to know, Stacey Marie Brown. But if everybody on the planet tags you on that random one little comment, you know, then your notifications are going to go off like insane. You know, we wouldn't remove that; we just leave it, but. We do ask people to use their discretion. Like, is this something that that you really want the author to take time to come and read? You know,
Yeah.
and then the other thing too is like we have seeking encouragement to continue rule, because we started getting posts where people would say, "Look, I'm really struggling with this book." And we found that if we allow people to post that, and we allow them, if they write it in a tactful, nice way, then there's tons of comments talking about how amazing the book is. And then that actually helps all these people go try the book. Or if someone else was having a similar experience, they read all that encouragement and they're like, oh, well, let me go retry that again. So I think that that's helpful for authors. So we allow that. But there are times where people will do that kind of post, and they're really mean, you know? And so like, cause they'll say like really mean what they don't like about the book. And so then what we'll do is we'll remove it. And then I'll just say, feel free to ask for encouragement to continue, but can you please try to consider that the author will most likely read your post? Like write it in a way that you would tell them to their face. That's kind of always been our motto. So
I
not
will
to get on
say
the group
this is
score
kind
with
of
that.
backwards, but sometimes when there's Facebook groups and people are like, what's a book you think is really overrated? And people mention one of my books, I like kind of take it as a compliment, because I'm like, that means they think a lot of people are talking about it. Like, it's like almost like that meme that's like, so you've heard of me. Like,
Yeah.
and-
It's bad, but you have heard of me.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, what's that saying about publicity? Right? There's no such thing as bad publicity, right? Like all of it gets people talking and trying things.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they say, you know.
In my case, like I almost never, I know it's been talked about a lot lately with people being tagged in negative reviews, and I know that's happening, but I personally have almost never had that. Maybe once or twice. Most of the reviews that I've been tagged in have been really nice, and so but I just have been seeing it come up more and more on threads. It might be the algorithm I'm in, I don't know.
Yeah, we have to remind people with the groups that we're actually, like, it's in the name of the group, we're a recommendation group. We're not a review discussion group. I mean, you can talk about what you love, but the whole purpose of it is to come in and recommend what you enjoyed and you think someone else will enjoy. That's the whole purpose of the group, you know? So anyways, but cool. I can't believe we went on and on about reviews. When it was
We can go on. We can keep going on. We'll move on now.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure we could make this last like quite a while.
Let's move on.
Okay, let's talk about actually each of your series for a minute before we pop off into other things. So like Christine, so you've got on the graphic for this live, we picked Avalon Tower, right?
Have it with me.
So, yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what that's about? Oh my goodness, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, this is hand painted by Simply Painted Pages. So no one else can get this. It's like a one of a kind that I'm keeping. But
it's beautiful.
yeah, so this one I wrote with my friend who writes he writes thrillers, that like non-fantasy thrillers, and we kind of combined together and did a fantasy spy thriller. So it's a spy academy, and the main character discovers that she has a magical power that the spy academy needs. And I really love young adult books. That's one of my favorite genres of fantasy, like especially some of the really fun ones from like 10 years ago, and academy books. So we wanted to write it like to have the feel of the young adult book, where she's undergoing lots of growth and learning. She starts off with like limited skills, and then she goes to this place where she's kind of enduring all these trials and learning. But we wanted it to be an adult book, so it could be more fun to write. So the characters are mid 20s. So it's supposed to have the feel of like a young adult book, but with a bit more spice and things like that.
Awesome. And you're a writing team.
Yes. So, and we have another series together that's the same idea. It's called Dark Fae FBI. So it's also kind of like crime thriller / Fae books.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So how does it work being a writing team? Like, how do you guys work together? Do one of you do predominantly more areas than the other? Like when it comes to POVs or?
So we do a really thorough outline together, and then he'll do a rough draft and I revise the draft, and then certain sections he might leave blank, like if it's more a romance section, then I'll write that part in.
You get the sex scenes.
We are better at sex scenes, I think.
I know. I don't know. Yeah. I can't say that to Nick, my husband, because he gets offended, but I agree.
That's awesome. Okay.
My husband as well. That wasn't about our sex life.
That was my next question. Actually, I knew he was your husband. But I was going to ask for the live for anyone who didn't know. But your writing partner is your husband. That's cool. Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I
And
have 2 different male authors. Yeah. So I write with my husband, and then my friend Michael, who lives in Ireland, under Alex Rivers.
Oh, okay, cool. Steph, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I know what writing with your husband's like.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I think it's the only time I can kind of lay down the law. I'm like, no, we're doing it this way.
Do that.
Stacey, have you always written on your own, or have you ever had a writing partner? You always on your own?
Yeah, I did the contemporary with Victor Gonzalez, which he did Victor Rawl. He did and so like that was more of, it's probably more of like him giving me. He did boxing and he did all that kind of stuff. So we just collaborated in that. And then I have somebody I'm talking to right now that we might do something down the road, but mostly it's been me. And I'm like, and I do struggle with like, oh, how do I I'm so. Because again, it's a movie in my head, so they come out very particular characters, very strong, and I'm like, will I be a good person to go with? Because I'm very strong with where I go with it, and they kind of tell me. So I don't do outlines, I don't do that kind of stuff. So I'm like, oh God, I may not be the best co-author. So mine are like, oh God, I don't even know how to describe Savage Lands, because
I don't know either.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's not. I was thinking, in my head, I had a Wild Wild West feeling of like, has my Savage Lands, again, this one is like most people know me from, is actually kind of a spin-off of my Darkness Collector Lightness world. And that was like set 20 years later. And I didn't expect TikTok could just kind of hit, at the time. So everybody found me that way. So I'm like, go back, and I'm like, you don't have to read it in the Darkness Collector Lightness order, because I actually like reading Savage Lands and then going back. But it's kind of a big Fae world, and it's, set in like now, so is it low fantasy? It's called, like, where it's, part of this world and stuff like that. But it just then 20 years later, they're in Budapest. And I felt like at this time, Fae was known to the world. We've lost all electricity. We've lost like things that like used to work in the man-made world when the other world and the earth collided. So then I had it like, okay, how would they go back in time? What?
I didn't know that you did that. That's what we did in Avalon Tower too, where like the Fae. I'm like, okay.
All the magic would destroy anything human made, so I had like
our idea, but yours came out first.
We all have like, you think there's not that many new. That's when people are like, he stole my idea. I'm like, nobody steals idea.
It's really hard. It's so hard to be completely original, right? When you guys were talking about magic destroying the world, it made me think of Kate Daniels. Lona Andrews.
Like, really so many things you can do.
That's right.
But I had it so where 20 years later in Budapest, like, what would this world be like if no longer, there was no president of the United States, there was no anything, how the world's divided, and they all went back to their more Eastern bloc, and how then things would go back to like horses and like, so I never had it where it went forward in the future, where that's how I think dystopian. Like mine was more going back to Wild Wild West, where it's like there is some kind of motorcycles and stuff that they get to use, but it's more horses and limited supplies and people like, so Savage Land starts off in that world where some like Brexley is kind of, human. She's grown up in a very elite section of Budapest, and then gets thrown into a Fey prison, which is like the worst. I mean, like no one comes out of this alive. And so it's like and it has a very much Roman games where to keep the population down, they kill off, like you have to, every time you're thrown in, one walks out, only one walks out. And so it's kind of that Hunger Game. I've heard Hunger Games. I've heard but I feel like my books don't have one genre. They kind of just fit
That
it all.
sounds really good. I need to read that.
It's fantastic. All you have amazing stories, but
we all never have time, but we all need to sit down and be like,
I know, y'all need to like on your break, pick each other's, because it's like seriously, y'all would love each other's stuff.
I
you
also
really
thought
would.
it was post-apocalyptic based on the cover.
I know, and it's funny. That's why I changed it and got the other covers too, because I was like, okay, I want to show a little more romance side to it, because I'm like, they're not post-apocalyptic, but that's like, it got said one time, and that is like, I have not been able to change that. That is just how people say it, and I'm like, fine, I give up. I don't know, but that's not at all what I wrote. Like that was not, because I wouldn't pick up that book. And that's what's so funny is like people are describing a book, I would be like, so it's very much high romance, true enemies to lovers. Like, I mean, these
it is enemies to lovers.
Are cut.
It is enemies to lovers.
But at the same time, and at that time, if anybody watching, I was watching Sense. I always have pull from like, one I was it was Vikings on my collector series. It was Sons of Anarchy in my darkness, and I was watching Sense8 on this one. And so they have, if anybody's ever watched that connection those characters have, that's what Brexley and Warwick have. So it's kind of a shadow daddy ghost, like that, where they can be with each other and nobody knows, like right with the two, they can be in the same room and still have, connection to each other. And it's very, very high spice, but like more of like a slow burn.
Super slow burn, but you had a creative way of doing it with the Phantom Hand stuff. Yeah.
So what you guys now consider slow burn is just, to me, what was average, like getting to 3 book before they actually there's so much before it, and people are like, oh my god, if they're not doing it in the first chapter, I won't read it. I'm like,
it is, and I think some of that has to do with all the white chooses now, because white chooses usually at the 50% mark, it's already started happening. I don't know if you've noticed that when you pick up a white choose.
I love
sorry.
slow burns. Like that's
Me too.
That's my thing.
Me too.
I just
so good.
That's what I want. That's what keeps me hooked. You're just waiting for it to happen, waiting for it to happen. If it happens straight away, I'm just like,
there's no like development. You've lost that interest. Like you want to see their knuckles brush each other. Like again, screaming about chili peppers or talking like we'll watch Pride and Prejudice and be like, look at his knuckles just brushing.
I know it's the lightest touch, and you're like, oh my god, I'm so invested. It's like it's that you want. It is because I think then those slow touches and those moments, and when it does finally happen, it is more of a thing, it's like you've been waiting for it. So that's my bag.
Plus where I have my couple do it too is in a bone church, so I mean it's not only like
like it.
It's definitely that. Bone church, actually named.
It's a true bone church and outside of Prague. That I visit. I didn't even know the story. I was just like, I just know my couple's doing it here.
I don't care.
Call the bone church.
Don't care.
So Steph, yours are slow burn, but you're also pretty steamy in your books.
Try.
There's a good percentage there of some steam off and on in some of the books. So.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's because it's such a long story. I think when your fans don't actually realize that they've read an entire book that doesn't have any sex in, and then the next book has got shitloads of sex in, it's like it doesn't become one book. It almost becomes just one. It doesn't become like 12 books or however many. It just becomes one long very long story.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always nice, and that was surprising to me because I always, you know, on those books where I have my main characters separated, and obviously the story part is them trying to get back together or trying to overcome what they're going through. I really thought that one of my biggest complaints of that was where's the sex? And I've never had that, which is great. So it means that, you know, the moments that they get back together and I can write those amazing sex scenes where it's like, it's been so long, you know, I think it makes more of an impact, but yeah, but I do enjoy those sex scenes.
Oh yeah,
Well,
I definitely enjoy it, but I think it's that angst that we love. It's the buildup, like the banter between the couples. To me, is my favorite part to write.
Oh, I love it.
Like that to me is where all that, like, ooh, I just want to get, dive into that and be like, ooh, that banter where, and I look at all the TV shows we probably liked. We loved when a couple was like full of banter and like, just that kind of friction.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I was gonna say, Christine, you're really good with banter in your books with your two. Yeah, you're very, very good at it, and you're very quirky. City of Thorns, I love because the quirkiness of the characters, her in particular. But sorry, I interrupted you. What were you saying? I didn't mean to interrupt you, Christine.
Oh, I thought I did anyways. X-Files. I was thinking.
Oh.
But I'm like thinking about the shows where I was like really like I want them to kiss.
Oh, talking about X-Files was like forever too.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was like waiting for a Christmas that never came. It was like, how long is it going to be?
Did we ever find out what happened to his sister? I don't know. Don't tell me. But did they ever like resolve it?
I don't remember.
Because that was the whole purpose of the show was his sister went missing, and he was looking for her. The entire, someone on the comments is gonna know.
I think funny what sticks with you about the show versus what doesn't, because I don't really remember any of that, but I remember so vividly that like family that they wheeled out from under the bed, the incest family, where they were like the pride.
I remember that one. That was the most disturbing one ever. The hillbilly family, and they had the mother under the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there was some disturbing.
Seared in my brain forever.
Yeah, that was the worst one. That was by far the worst. I'll never forget that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on from that because that sounds really gross. We've talked about Avalon Tower, we've talked about Savage Lands, but we haven't really talked about what Afterlife is and Hellbeast and Transfusion. So why don't you give us a little bit of if you can, a little bit of I know getting succinct sometimes.
Horrible asking an author to tell us about her books. We're like, I don't know. I wrote it. Don't ask me to tell you about
it. It's a difficult one. I mean, I don't know. It's gone beyond explaining. It's like it's just there's too many of them. But it kind of. I mean, it starts with Afterlife, which is, 12 books of Kira and Draven, and basically it starts off how they meet. It's a very slow burn, but lots and lots of stuff happens, and it is, angels, demons, everything in between, and yeah, it's just it's kind of their adventure love story, and it's got going back in time, it's got going to hell, it's got I don't know how
time travel. Yeah.
I mean, I have I employ a girl, bless her, who basically created the Bible of all of the series, because obviously it's a spin-off series. It's Transfusion series, which is the Vampire King. It's the Hellbeast series, which is my Hellbeast biker. It's the Siren series and Oline Forces, and so there's so many different branches of it, and I was really losing my mind trying to keep track of all of them. And it was only when she completed this kind of Bible that I realized I had about, I don't know, I can't remember what she said. I think it was something about 347 characters.
It's insane. Yeah.
I mean, everybody I'd mentioned, obviously not main characters, because who needs that? But it was, there was a reason I couldn't remember people's names. There was a reason I couldn't remember, like, eye color and
it's like
and stuff like that. So, but when it comes to writing the story, because they all interlock, and I have all of those little Chekhov guns there. And I don't know if everybody's heard of the Chekhov gun, but basically you through when you do an extremely large series, you drop seeds all the way through. And the things that I wrote about 10 years ago, I'm still writing about. I'm only mentioning today. And then, you know, so it's like the longest game ever that I've been playing.
That's
You know?
amazing.
But it means that I don't actually have much brain power for like everyday stuff. So I just sound really, it's like, you're an author, really? And you can't string a sentence together? Like, no, I save that shit for when I can type it, you know? So, but yeah, I love it. I love the world building. I love slotting all of those puzzle pieces together and winging the shit out of it, basically. So
I've been thinking more about the Chekhov's gun thing because I'm realizing some of my favorite books to write are where there's like a big secret and the reader knows it's going to come out at some point and that the shit is going to hit the fan. So I've been thinking about
I love that.
giving the
that.
character, and you know it's going to fuck up the romance, but yeah. So I've been thinking about that more.
Build into the very end, anyways.
Yeah.
Right. They get sold too early. We lose us romance readers. I'm like, huh.
Right.
I love dropping bombs. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's like, and then waiting and sitting back like an evil villain, just waiting to see what the fans say and the reaction. And it just gets me every time. It's brilliant.
My latest book, Land of Ashes, I do a big bomb at the end. And I can always tell the difference that people have read the Darkness, especially the Lightness saga, because there's a connection. Again, I do a lot of that world, like where they're all intertwined and stuff. And I've been dropping things for years too. Like I need to walk away from a bit. But I could always tell who has read it and who's not. Like, you know, who has gone back and read all those series. Because like when they've read it, they're like, feel like that. I mean, I can hear their scream from like the miles apart. And then other people are like, oh, interesting. That was really cool. Like, I'm still intrigued. And I'm like, oh, you haven't read the other ones then. You know, again, it's that tying in. And it's really hard though. I'm sure you experience this too, is to have such a long series in a world where like, and I threaded through, is though to keep the excitement of going back, you know, like, oh, you probably need to go back to read that one before you read this one. And it's marketing wise, it's kind of a pain. Oh, you know, it's the worst thing to do. But
it's so hard because, like, you know, when you you start a new series, you know, it's like if they want to read about my Vampire King, who wants to then have to read 12 books of a book that they haven't wanted to pick up yet? And you know, it's being able to write it in such a way that you're trying not to spoil everything else, but still picking it up so that they can. It makes sense. The world makes sense. So it is a bit of a logistical nightmare in your mind, but you're not going to please everybody, you know. And I can't turn around and say, hey, you want to read my next book? Hey, you've got like 50 books to read before that. They're going to be running a mile, and I'm just going to end up, you know, like shoot myself in the foot. So
I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword because I feel like the right now, I think it's harder to launch a new series. There's just so much out there for readers to choose from. It's hard to get attention on a brand new series. But if they, that's something I've seen in the past year. Like specifically, I think it's changed in the past year. I'm hearing it from other authors too. Whereas like the older series, people already know what it is and they're already invested in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely got ups and downs to it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm terrified.
So well, Stephanie and Stacey, I think you guys have that in common, where you have these really big sagas that are very complicated and intertwined. They all kind of connect with one another. Christine, you guys have a lot of series, but they're shorter, right? They're usually up to 4 books. What is is there any, or go ahead, tell us a little bit about it. Like how many?
Our older books are all part of one big world. We're actually just about to release all these like omnibuses where it makes it really clear how they connect. We just released the first box set. But those are older. Our newer books are different, like City of Thorns and Frost and Avalon Tower. There's no connection. Or some of our other more recent books. But I do think we want to start adding more to existing series. So Nick is working on another book in the Frost series with new characters. I really like the Avalon Tower world. I would keep writing in that one, but I'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think that there's so much labor that goes into trying to market a new series too that takes away from writing time. So it would be in some ways it would be I'm such a like distractible person. I always want a shiny new thing, but I think it would be better in some ways to just kind of like stick with something, even if it's just new characters and a new couple, but in the same world.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to say, as I was listening to all of you talk, that there's really a reader for kind of both scenarios. You know, I hear people in the groups, they want these really long sagas and they love it. But then I also hear the opposite, where people are like, I can't go do 12 books right now. Let me go. Where's something with three, maybe 4, you know, like I hear, or standalone. I'll take a standalone today. So really there's a reader for both, you know. Yeah. And I think we switch a lot too. Like I think people bounce around, you know, I don't think people tend to always stay in one lane.
I've always had a question for those people that are like, oh, I just want one book. I don't have time to get committed. I'm like, yeah, but you're then starting a new book with new characters all the time instead of already being in a world. Wouldn't that be better for if you're busy to already be in a world that you don't have to think about it and you just keep continuing? Then, because I always hear the people are like, oh, that's a series. No, I'm like a single. And I'm like, but that's then, you know, because this is just me. I do not like starting books. I already want to be in. I want to be in the characters. I want to be in the world. So every time I like lay down to go to sleep, I'm like, oh shit, I got to start a new book. And as soon as I'm in it, I can wake up. But you know, it takes me a minute. Like, so I'm always a question for those people that are like, oh, I just like standalones. I'm like, but why? Then you have to introduce yourself to new characters almost every other night instead of like already
true.
You know, just to get. I've always been like, what is that?
No, that's true. I was going to just give a head nod to Christine on this. I think you might know where I'm going with this. Is what I hear from people is with series that because books aren't, you know, they're coming out over time, and a lot of people don't like to read completed series or non-completed series. But when they do read incomplete series, they forget and they don't have time to go back and reread the previous book. And so they love it when people like seeing Crawford does their summaries at the beginning of the book. You've started doing that almost all of your books now, right, Christine?
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Next one. Yeah.
Yes, I hear that all the time. I have people say if authors are doing, I don't know, Stacey or Stephanie, if you guys have, I don't know if you do it or if you've considered doing it, but if you do like a summary of the previous book at the front, that's the biggest negative I hear from readers about why they struggle with long series is because they don't want to have to go back and read 5 books. They want to read a summary and then get right into the next book.
That's a really good idea. I mean, it's not something I've
great
thought of doing, but you know, it'd be so beneficial for me when I'm like a book 12. I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you've only got to, you know, summarize it, yeah, that would
just at the beginning of it. Christine, you started doing that. I don't know if you've done all your series, but I've read it on a couple of your books. You've started
at a certain point, and
I mean, but is it just like basically the back material? Like, whoops,
it'll be like it'll be like a 1.5 page summary of everything that they need.
I'm like, that sounds like torture. That's what we avoid.
Well, that's
it's like that elevator pitch. You're like,
I mean, so imagine you're giving it to a new editor who hasn't read the previous books, and you're like, here's what you need to know. That's kind of how I picture it.
Yeah, I mean, I could do it. I could do a summary of the last book, but I couldn't do a summary of everything that happened in the
No, you couldn't. No, you wouldn't. Just the last, because most people,
I could probably do that, but for that would drive me insane. I think.
Yeah,
I have to like go anyway. So this happens. 10
I've been
minutes
working.
later. Yeah.
I've been working slowly but surely trying to get the message out that it's important to read non-completed series. And that is a very complicated, controversial statement. We get all kinds, I don't know if you've seen these posts, we get all kinds of comments about that. People have lots of opinions about that. And so we try to keep it like as positive as possible, but it's just, go ahead. Sorry, Steph.
No, sorry to interrupt, but for an author, we wouldn't actually be able to afford to be authors if nobody read our stuff as we were writing, you know, because it's like, you know, for me, if I'm going to take the year to complete a series, if nobody's reading my books during that year, it's like I'd have to go back to being a waitress again to, you know, so it's very, it is a double-edged blade. It really is. I mean, it's great, you know, when you get to the end of 12 books and you've got one person and they just go through them all. That's, so I think as long as there's, you know, a happy mix of people that decide to do that or decide not to do that and read as you're writing, then, you know, that's
we just
balances.
have a different consumerism. I think, I mean, I grew up, you had to at least wait a year for a book. And that was, I mean, that wasn't even,
it's changed.
you just did.
Mhm.
And I actually think I find fun in the fandom of it. Like why, you know, like being together, like all, you know, you could be talking about it and chatting about it. And that's what I love about these Facebook groups. I'm like, then you guys can analyze it and talk about it. And then, you know, but I hear everyone like, oh, you don't understand. I can't do it. I'm like, you all think you can. Like, you know, it's just a weird, I think TV and stuff has changed people's idea of consumption. And they want it
Netflix.
now. And they're the only ones that like, I know, you understand that I can't do that. Yes, you can. You know,
I think we also write, at least I do, I write cliffhangers. So people.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't, the books that I used to read didn't have that hard of a cliff. Well, some of them did. But I mean, I know I started doing it after I read the Holly Black books when I was the Cruel Prince, because I got to the end of book 2 and that, and I was like, I've never pre-ordered a book so fast, and I was just like it just made me realize like cliffhangers do work in terms of getting people to really want the next book.
They really work.
But I can't.
And I'm like, isn't TV all cliffhangers? Like, it's funny how they treat books so different. Like, you have to wait usually you know, either a week or a whole summer, you know, to get to the next, you know. So why are books treated like, oh, I won't buy it until it's all done, you know? But you'll watch the
living
TV
in a
show that has the
binge
cliffhangers.
society. That's the thing, isn't it? Everything is binge watch, binge read.
They're changing that too.
We have no patience anymore.
They have. Bridgerton season 3 is only 4 episodes.
They're slowly starting to back off that too, and even making some of these that are weekly again back to, you know, you have to wait, you know. Because it got to me like we can, as a society, we never seem to stay in the gray area. We always have to be like, I want, you know, and it's just like we need to find that balance of like, yes, I know you guys want it, but we're also artists and we need to write it. But, you know, there is like I understand, because I'm a reader too. Like I want, you know, I want books just as bad as you do, but I actually enjoy, I'm just sick like that. I'm like, give me the S&M stuff. Cause I'm like, I enjoy that pain. Like I get excited about wanting books so bad. You know, I'm like, oh, who can I talk to about this?
You thinking about
analyze?
Yeah. Like while you're waiting, if there is a big cliffhanger too, it keeps you thinking about it the whole time. Like, how the fuck is this going to work out?
Yeah. I know. I love incomplete series. There's so many books out there to read. I have no problem with hopping to something else to try. Like it's, you know, it's fine for me. I do okay with that, but it is a controversial topic. Like we can explain this till we're blue in the face about how it helps authors and, you know, all the good reasons to read incomplete series, but people get on there, man, and they're very strong, very strong opinions on it. So, but I'm doing my best to help in the author world to help educate. So I'm doing my best. Okay, so we're almost out of time. Before we sign off, I feel like we could go like forever. This has been a great panel. This has been so much fun, you guys. It has, hasn't it? It's been great.
It really got to any of your questions. Did you have questions for us?
I did. Well, you know what? I honestly, all the feedback I've gotten from these lives is people prefer this type of format where everyone's just talking about these kinds of topics. It's way more very natural, very organic, and very real. And they get a chance to get to know you, you know. And readers care about that. Like we care, we care about our authors.
I just looked in your group because I was looking to see if there's comments, but I'm obviously on the wrong place, and it's just like the dirtiest picture. I won't hold it up for long.
I saw that today. I actually zoomed in. I was trying to figure out exactly what was going on with that picture because, like, there looks like there's a towel on her thigh, but then his face is scratched out. He's taking a picture, right? That's what he's doing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Wow. Okay. Anyways, all right. So I got 3 questions for you guys. It's so funny you just did that, Christine. All right, here's my 3 questions for each of you. Well, let me start with the fun one, and then I have 2 questions after that. Okay, so here's the fun one. Stephanie, you have an unfair advantage on this question. Oh, what?
I'm
Can you hear me?
so sorry. Because I had to move places, because my internet wasn't working in the other room, my phone is got 2%. So if I just blank out, I'm very, very sorry.
That'll be your seat.
Okay. Well, all right. Okay.
So
Let's start with you real quick.
Stephanie, I just want to say right now, thank you very much for having me on. And thank you to all my fans. And I love you all. And ladies, it was an honor to be in this live with all of you. So yeah. Anyway, just pretend that. But it's okay if I go. It's not me being rude.
Yeah. We'll start with you. Okay, so you have an unfair advantage. I feel like I need to speed talk. You have an unfair advantage, Stephanie, because you heard this at FFB, Fiction Fans of Ball Grounds, that you host. Okay. Oh, she's gone. Is she gone?
Man, she got out of there.
All right,
my connection is bad too. Sorry. Oh, bad connection.
She's back. Is she back? Is she gone?
I think her phone will actually go out.
She's gone. All right, she's gone. All right, okay. Then here we go. I got it for you guys. All right, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so someone had asked this at book signing when I was facilitating the panel with the Twisted Sisters, Stephanie, and some other folks. And the question was, of all your characters in your book, who would you shag, who would you marry, and who would you kill? Now, if you don't want to answer it, then we can just pass.
Shag Warwick and marry Warwick. I mean, Eli. I have so many boys. I like them all. That's the only reverse pair I'll do, me and my boys.
Your books.
So one of my answers would be a spoiler.
Ooh.
But for who I would shag, I'm gonna say, okay, marry. One of my favorite characters is a really early one from a book called Magic Hunter. I think because he's one of the characters who has this tragic background. He has a more human background than some of my other characters. He grew up in a human-like way. Maybe him or Torin from Frost. I'd shag or marry both of them. So both of them. Okay. Would be Court of Shadows. Gosh, I have so many characters I could shag. You know who I'd marry? Rudin from Court of Shadows, because he doesn't talk, which seems kind of nice. And then
he doesn't talk. You would marry him, the one that doesn't talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a silent. He doesn't give you any shit. And then
got it.
From the same series, Balaros is the person who I would kill. And he was, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the book 48 Laws of Power, but somebody once recommended it to me and I picked it up, and it was it's like a psychopath handbook. It's like how to manipulate people and take credit for their work. And I took that book and I made it into his character, and he's a very evil, manipulative character. So that's who I would kill.
Rightly so, it sounds like. Holy cow. Wow, talk about research.
Sex with that one.
What's that?
Knowing me, I'd probably be like, oh, that's the one I'd have sex with.
But he's not hot. If he was hot, everyone would.
Never mind.
Yeah.
No.
If he was
Okay, so then my last two questions for both of you is upcoming I'm gonna do it one at a time. What's next for you guys? Upcoming releases, what are you working on, projects, what's next? And Stacey, I know that you actually have another pen name too, and you can talk about that. It's no big deal at all.
Land of Monsters, Ash's final book, and that one I'm almost I'm at 90% almost done with, and so that one will come out next. I'm also have my contemporary romance as S. Marie. And my royal books are coming out next. So it was when I met Harry, I kind of yes, I actually worked with his godfather. So Harry would come in all the time. So I got to meet him. So my royal book is actually a dedication to him. So those are going to be out this summer, and I have a couple others out. And then I'm going to be trying maybe a high fantasy after this. I also have Cage that I want to do as a contemporary, which is a kidnapping psycho thriller one. So there's a lot up in my, in the idea bank. I just have to finish Ashes. Yeah.
Yep. That's awesome. How about you, Christine?
So the next release will probably be the sequel to Avalon Tower. I'm furthest along in that one. But then I'm also working on the sequel to Hallowed Games. And Nick and I are working on another book in the Frost series that is about, we decided to do like a really random couple mashup. And the main character is like a chipper morning news show host. And she ends up like forced to share a room with the Fae god of death.
Oh.
So that's our,
Cool.
So I'm working on 3. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, final question. So you guys have done very well with your writing careers. Your series have done very well. We're huge fans. You're best-selling authors. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting writing or a brand new author? Anything that you can give as advice to help with their journey?
God, that's so hard. I mean,
is it really hard?
You know, it's like, yeah, because there's so many different aspects of what advice you can give, you know, like just the writing or your marketing or, you know, like there's so many
the mental
areas.
health side. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say like the first thing that came to my mind would be to kind of stay off social media because I feel like I know that people build marketing brands on social media and maybe sometimes that goes really well, but I feel like there's a lot on social media that can just get in your head too, of like people seeing things that make you question your own writing. And it's just a giant time suck. And then the other thing I would say would be to get an outlining book, although Stacey doesn't outline, so maybe that's not advice for everyone.
I think
if we had time, that was another question I had, but I know we were out of time. I was going to talk about outlining.
Like, listen to everybody and then throw it all away and find what works for you, because they can listen to me and Christine give advice all day long and find that, because when I first started, I followed careers that I was like, oh my God, I want hers. So I thought I needed the murder wall with the characters, and it was a waste of time for me. It ended up being. So it's just especially at the beginning, try all these avenues, try, outlining, try not outlining, trying, just sitting, like whatever it is, and finding out, then learning all these rules and then throwing it away and finding what works for you. Because I got so tired of hearing like, just put your butt in the seat, I'm like, I don't work that way. I'm too emotional. If I'm not in a headspace to write, I will sit there, waste a day, and it'll say like he said, like that'll be my line. I'll be like, so I get out and walk and get in nature, whatever it is that pulls that inspiration. And I think it was a lot of like, don't give up, because it's so easy to walk away, especially when you haven't put your heart and soul out there. And I know people that I was in a writing group with that probably are still like 13 years later, still talking about putting out their book. There is a time when you have edited enough, you have, make sure you go through all those process, that get a good cover, get a good editors, and then you just have to let your baby go. And that's what's hard is actually going, do I want to do this for a living, or do I just want to talk about this and do it as more of a hobby? And that's okay to choose hobby. Sometimes you find that it may be this world, because it's not. I think a lot of people think it's easy, and it's cutthroat. It is not for the faint of heart. It changes every day. Even they'll be like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't even know, because every day the rules change in this, the genre and the, business. So I think just find your place in it. You can listen to all of us and then throw it all away and find what works for you. That's what my advice is.
That's great advice. Really good. All right, you guys. Thank you. This has been a blast. Seriously, so much fun. I really appreciate it so much.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, no, definitely. I hope to have you back sometime. It'd be great. All right, you guys. Have a wonderful night.